In this next Python tutorial video, I'm going to build even more on the last video. This will be the 7th Python video, and I was reviewing in the 6th video what I had said. I apologize for the bad sound in that video. I think I had the microphone jiggling against my shirt or something. In any event, I'm building on a couple of the things I'm just going to review on, and then I'm going to let you work ahead. For this 7th video, I'm just going to build a bit more on those variable types. Again, today's date, what I'm working on, I have as a purpose. Remember, the blank lines serve the humans. Name, age, and height. Print out a welcome screen. Okay. In the last video, we talked about why I would need to use that integer command, forcing the value that the user types in into an integer format. So that int command is going to force whatever the person enters for their age to be stored in RAM as an age, to be stored in RAM in the variable age as an integer. Now, when I ask someone for their height, it is possible they give me some decimal value. Similar to the integer command, there is in Python called a float command. Similar to forcing it to be an integer, float command forces it to be what's called a real number. I'm not sure why Python uses the word float, maybe because the decimals and the number of trailing numbers and stuff floats around. It's not a fixed value per se, so they call it a float variable. If you use Java and some of the others, they'll call that a real. Some programming languages call it a precision variable or a double precision variable, or there's different terms for the concept of a real number, a value that has a portion part or a decimal part or a fractional part. Oops, how did I get that YouTube thing in there? For the float command in Python, it's going to force whatever they put in there as a decimal number or a real number into that height variable. Remember, I showed you in the last video that trick when you want to take a whole section of your code out or in, you can go up here under format and say comment out that region. So that basically forces it to be ignored. It's still in your code, you might want it after, but when the software, when the IDE compiles, checks for syntax, it sees all of these comment lines and it just ignores them. So I modified my program. Remember, I did that save as trick and I just saved it as the 7th program. Last week it was the 6th program. And this time I went through and I changed the if statements to do the height. And I'm just going to review this and you can work on some sample programs to practice. Up here in the input, I'm forcing it to be a decimal value, not an integer value like I did for age. I'm going to force this variable to be a numeric or a number, not a string, and have some decimal thing. So what's my if statement doing? Like we've seen before, we always look at the if statement as some form of true-false statement. We have to remember that we can't compare apples and oranges. If you have a decimal value here, you better have a float variable here. You can't have a string variable here. You can't have an integer variable here. It has to agree. Apples and apples, oranges and oranges. And so I'm just making this up just for fun. 48.5, that's a decimal value. That has to be a decimal value or a float value. If this condition is true, this will get done. If this condition is not true, if it's false, it will ignore these and go on to the next statement. Now, in some programming languages, it's called else if. In Python, they've abbreviated it to else if. So let's just pretend in English it was like this. If this is true, do that. If it's not true, move on. Then it will come down here and check if that's true. And if that's true, it will do that. If it's not true, it'll move down and check if that's true. If that's not true, it'll move on. And you can keep adding here. You could add in all the else ifs you want here. And I've seen sometimes 6, 10 more else ifs. You might have multiple conditions you want to check. Then at the end, you don't have to, you might have this else option. What if none of those are true? Then what am I going to do? If all those aren't true, something's false, I want to do something. You might not want to do something. You might not want to do this, but it depends. Now, I'm going to clean up a few more things. Put that back. When you're doing comparisons, you have a few options. Less than, greater than, and your first reaction is to do this. If it equals, like a lot of syntax, like those crazy French verbs, there are rules. Oops. If you want to check if something's equal, you have to use, in Python, you have to use double equal. In some programming languages, you don't. You just say an equal sign. But in Python, you need double equals. I didn't make the rules. I'm just telling you. You could do this. I want to know if the height is less than or equal to 48.5. I could do this. Greater than or equal to. This one's really weird. Can you guess what that means? It actually means not equal. It's not greater than and it's not less than. It's not equal to. I'm pretty sure I have that one. I don't use that one much, but you could check that one out. There's different ways to do the different conditions. But these are the common ones. Less than, equal to, greater than, or greater than and equal to, or less than and equal to. You can play all you want, all kinds of combinations. Okay? Now, what's going to happen here? This, if it's equal to 78, it has to be exactly 78. Then I'm going to put out the age and say, hey, you're the same height as me. If it's greater than 92, I'm going to just say, hey, are you sure? Nobody's that tall. And if you know your math, you could put whatever. You can do the math. 92 inches, that's pretty tall. I believe that's 7 feet 8 inches, 7 feet 10 inches. I don't even know if the basketball players are that tall. Maybe I have that number wrong, but it doesn't matter. And if you're not really short and you're not equal to me and you're not really tall, then you're just average. When I run the program, it pops up and I put my name in, this time for my age, and then I'm going to put 78. And then it pops up and it says, oh, you are 22 and you are the same as me, 78. Why did that happen? Because of that if statement, if you put it in like that. If I put it in another way, 22, and I put, I don't know, 74.65. Remember, I'm putting it in as a float, as a real number. And then says, well, you're just average. Nothing special there, because that if statement flagged like I expected it to. It wasn't less than that. It wasn't exactly that. It wasn't more than that. You're just average. Okay? So I want you to practice using this. I'm going to give you an assignment. There was a suggestion, and I will actually share this file so you can see exactly how I coded it. Watch when you're doing it that you have all of the documentation as required. You have your variables declared what you're going to do. You have a purpose in your program. I chose to use name, age, and height. You can make up a program doing anything you want. Practice some intro screen inputs forcing them to be what you need them to be, depending what your program plan was going to be. You can try different styles and different ideas, and then go in here, comment them out, uncomment them back, and play with it so you don't have to keep typing things over and over. Try multiple conditions. True, false, that's all you have to remember. You can't compare apples and oranges. You're not allowed to do that. They have to agree, and that comes back to what you did here. That's it for now. You got work to do. Good luck.